Movement is part of life. You might even say that movement is life. And certainly, movement is part of yoga. Why? Why is movement part of yoga? I think it's related to this idea that movement is really about living and how we live with fulfillment. So, how do we find fulfillment in our lives? And part of that is learning how to be in our bodies, learning how to move our bodies, and continuing that practice of fulfilling movement for our entire lives. And at times that feels challenging, especially as we age or perhaps experience physical limitations in different ways. How can we continue to move even as we age and even as we experience normal wear and tear or even perhaps more extreme physical limitations? I really think it's about simplicity. That often when we experience difficulty or challenge, whether that's with our physical health or just in our lives in general, it feels really complicated. And our tendency might be to think that the solution to those challenges must also be complicated or time consuming or expensive or even hard to understand. In Ayurveda, we work with this idea of like increases like, that the way to become more balanced is to work with opposite qualities. So if I have a lot of imbalance in a certain direction, and then I'm also adding in qualities that have those same characteristics of that imbalance, then that imbalance becomes stronger. Well, all of that to say that if our lives are feeling complicated or challenging, if our health is feeling complicated or challenging, according to yoga and Ayurveda, the answer is simplicity. What does that look like for a movement practice? And certainly, when we think of yoga, we might think of things that feel complicated. We've seen perhaps beautiful illustrations of yogis bringing their bodies into these interesting shapes. And we wonder if that's something that we should do or could do or even want to do. It's nice to have these really inspirational images, but to also think about practically what works for us in our lives and our bodies. So it's back to this idea of simplicity. Here are a few tips for working with simple movement in your own life. Number one, most importantly, is the breath. The breath is what makes anything yoga. Breath is at the heart of yoga. The reason for this is because of prana, life force, our inherent juiciness and vitality. This is also the healing force. So if we are experiencing difficulty or challenge, stress or pain, we know we need prana. We need that juicy vitality to return to our experience, to return to our body. We need to be more aware of it. And the breath is really what introduces us to that reality. There are many ways of working with the breath, but a simple way is to just every day or on a regular basis, take a moment before you move and rest your hands on your abdomen. This could be done in a seated posture, in a standing posture, in a reclined posture. Just feel that part of your body and feel the feeling of the flow of your breath. And see if you can perhaps feel it in a deeper way. Probably have heard about the breath a lot, especially if you're someone who has been studying yoga or even contemplating it. But every time we meet the breath, we meet the movement of our breath in our bodies. Every time we do that, even if it's the 1,000th time or the 10,000th time that we've done that, we want to continue to receive a sense of newness, that there's something there that's really special. So feeling the breath moving in your abdomen as you inhale and exhale without pushing. Just let the breath be there. Let your mind be there. And do that for a minute or two. And then when you're ready, stand up and stretch your body. So part of this moving away from complication is to not overthink things. We actually don't have to really put a lot of thought into what we're going to do in our yoga practice. We can just say, I want to experience my breath and I want to move my body in a way that feels good. So noticing where you feel stiff, where you feel tight, where you maybe feel tender, and bringing movement there. We work with this wonderful practice called exercises for joints and glands here at the Institute. And that's really what this practice is about, is accessible movement, functional movement that helps you to feel better in your body, and it helps you to not hurt yourself as you or not experience pain as you move through your daily duties. So of course, that's a more organized sequence of exercises, but you can also, in a standing posture, to start to stretch your body. Maybe take your arms overhead, move a little bit from side to side, and then come back into the standing posture and close your eyes and start to move progressively through your joints. So if you start at the top of your space and move down to the bottom, and then move from the bottom back up to the top. This is a systematic progression of movement that could feel helpful. So moving your neck, your shoulders, moving into your elbows, your wrists, swinging your arms a little bit, twisting from side to side, few pelvic circles, moving into the joints of your knees and ankles, feeling your feet kind of rolling around, and then working back up. It sounds really simple, and it is, but it can also be challenging. So the idea here is that we take the mind and the breath, we bring mind and breath together, because when you have mind and breath together, you have prana, you have energy, you have vitality. So at every point, instead of just moving robotically or mechanically with this kind of thought of like, am I even doing this right? We're trying to set all of that aside, just take the mind into these different spaces in the body as we move and breathe, and to not overthink it. And so as you're working in your shoulders or your elbows or your hips, you're just present to the feeling there. And then over time, as you become more established in this awareness of your body, you start to notice how your movement can become more organic. It can become more suited to what you need. This physical awareness begins to transcend into a more energetic awareness. When we start to move into that dimension of deeper energetic awareness, that is really anchored in our physical body and anchored in our breath and anchored in our mind, then our healing path is we're on it and we're moving forward. So I hope you will contemplate this idea of simple movement for your own health and wellness. Thank you.